Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. When I first said I wanted to build a global e-commerce platform, people laughed. They said, "Jack, you don't even know how to code. You don't even speak English properly." And they were right, I didn't. But one thing I did know, I could dream. And my dreams were big. Because when you dream small, your motivation dies after the first no. But if your dream is truly big, it pushes you forward, even when everything says to stop. Dream big, because dreaming big or small costs the same. The difference lies in how you're going to live with that dream. I remember once in Hangzhou telling a friend that one day our company would be among the largest in the world. He looked at me like I was insane. "Jack, you're just an English teacher." But that's where the secret lies. It doesn't matter where you come from. It matters what you believe. When you believe in the impossible, you inspire others to do the same. Real transformation begins in the mind. And big dreams require a strong mentality, a true success mindset, nurtured through visualization, goal setting, and daily self-belief. I like to say, when you're poor, if you have a dream, you never feel poor. Because a dream doesn't depend on your bank account, but on your vision. Many times, I had no money, but I had something worth more. The desire to change the world. And that showed up in small daily actions of personal growth and self-improvement. Every book I read, every conversation I listened to, it all fed my ambition to make an impact. Yes, I was poor, but inside, I was the richest man in the world. You don't need to have all the resources. You need to start with what you have, exactly where you are. If you're lost, with no direction, begin by asking, what makes my eyes light up? What problem would I love to solve in the world? That's where your path is. And once you find that purpose, use every second wisely. Because dreaming big demands real-time management, focus, and productivity. Big dreams require you to become the best version of yourself. And now, I leave you with a challenge. If not now, when? If not me, who? This phrase has always echoed deeply within me. There's no perfect time to start. There's only courage to decide. And if your dream is so big that it scares you, then maybe it's the right dream. Because it's the big dreams that get us moving and push us toward greatness. But are we really ready for the first stumbles on that path? Before creating Alibaba, I was rejected from dozens of jobs. KFC came to my city, hired 23 out of 24 candidates. Guess who was the only one rejected? Yes, me. Harvard? 10 times. Failure for many is the end. For me, it was just a comma. Every door that closed pushed me to find a new one. I understood that failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of it. And if you learn to look at your falls as teachers, your growth becomes unstoppable. Many people try to avoid failure as if it were a disease. But let me ask you, how do you expect to become strong if you've never lifted any weight? Failure shaped my mental resilience, developed my self-discipline, and sharpened my emotional intelligence. When you learn from mistakes, you're not moving backwards, you're getting a new map. Every failure I lived through, from the first websites no one used, to the speeches where I was ignored, prepared me for moments that demanded real courage. Learning from failure is like building an invisible muscle. You fall, but get up more aware. You try again, now with more clarity. I often laugh at the mistakes I've made, not because they were funny, but because they taught me more than any book. And yes, I love reading. One that impacted me was Failing Forward by John C. Maxwell. He teaches how to treat failure as fuel. That's a read that can truly transform how you deal with life's setbacks. Over time, I realized that those who fear failing also fear trying, and that fear is paralyzing. The courage to keep going after falling is what separates the dreamers from the doers. And when you fail, because you will, choose to use it as a trampoline, not a prison. Use failure as a tool for self-awareness. Identify what didn't work. Adjust the route and try again, now wiser. You need to accept an uncomfortable truth. Failure is the price of evolution. There is no real growth without pain. The difference between those who win and those who give up lies in how they interpret their failures. And I challenge you, the next time something goes wrong, pause for a moment and ask, what was this here to teach me? Because maybe the failure you fear is exactly the step missing on your way to success. But only those who persist ever truly find out. I was never the smartest student in the room. In fact, I failed multiple subjects at school. When I applied for jobs, I got rejected over 30 times. Even KFC rejected me. Out of 24 candidates, I was the only one not hired. Harvard, they turned me down 10 times, but I didn't stop. I knew that if I kept trying, I'd eventually find my path. Alibaba didn't rise overnight. It took 19 years of hard work, mistakes, and challenges to become what it is today. That's why I believe success isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. Persistence is what separates those who reach their dreams from those who quit halfway. I've met brilliant people who gave up because things got tough. Talent can start the race, but only persistence gets you across the finish line. Every tough moment at Alibaba, when we had no money, no trust from investors, and no clear way forward, we kept moving. We believed in our mission. And sometimes, believing is all you have. But if you hold on, that belief becomes reality. In the early days, there were many times when it would have made sense to quit, but we didn't. Because persistence is not about being fearless. It's about acting despite the fear. It's about waking up and showing up even when nothing seems to be working. It's choosing to move forward when every part of you wants to stop. That's how you build mental resilience and self-discipline. That's how you create daily improvement and long-term success. When I look back, I don't remember the easy days. I remember the struggles, the days we couldn't pay the bills, the nights we stayed up thinking Alibaba would collapse. But those are also the days that shaped us. Every moment of doubt made us stronger. Every failure taught us a lesson. And with every small win, we built momentum. That momentum fueled our motivation and kept our success habits alive. So if you're struggling now, good. It means you're on the right path. Easy roads don't lead to extraordinary places. Persistence is like a river cutting through rock, not because it's powerful, but because it never stops. The question is, how long are you willing to keep going when nobody's watching, when nobody believes in you yet, and when the outcome is still uncertain? No one achieves true success alone. From day one at Alibaba, I knew we needed more than just an idea. We needed people. I wasn't the smartest, I wasn't the best in technology, but I surrounded myself with people who were better than me in those areas. Building a team with different strengths was what allowed us to survive and grow. A team is like a symphony. If everyone plays their part with passion and precision, the result is powerful. But for that to happen, you have to care about people, not just their output. I often say, if you want to catch the rabbit, don't change the rabbit, change yourself. This is how teamwork works. You don't force others to fit your mold. You adapt, grow, and create space for each one to shine. That's how you create self-awareness and cultivate emotional intelligence. A great leader isn't the one who does everything, but the one who inspires others to do their best. And when people feel valued, they give their best without being asked. There was a time at Alibaba when we were completely broke. We had to decide if we'd pay rent or invest in the site. I gathered the team and said, we're not here just to make money. We're here to build something that changes the world. And they stayed, not because of the money, we had none. They stayed because of the mission, the unity, the belief that together we could achieve something great. That's what leadership through empowerment looks like. A good team is like a garden. You don't just plant seeds and expect magic. You water, prune, protect from storms. And the more you take care of people, the stronger the roots become. At Alibaba, we placed people first, not just customers, but employees, partners, and even competitors. Why? Because when people feel safe and respected, they become creative, loyal, and bold. That's the foundation for any culture of growth mindset and innovation. So if your team isn't delivering what you expect, maybe the issue isn't with them, it's with how you're leading. Are you inspiring or just demanding? Are you listening or only talking? Teamwork isn't about being in charge. It's about creating trust and connection. And once you've built that, you'll realize your team doesn't work for you. They work with you. And that's where the real magic begins. Change has never scared me. It excites me. Because where there's change, there's opportunity. In the early days of Alibaba, the internet was still a mystery to most people in China. No one believed it would become the force it is today. But I saw the future, even when I didn't understand the technology myself. We didn't have the skills, but we had the vision. And vision is what allows you to stay ahead, even in a world that shifts by the minute. At Alibaba, we were always ready to pivot. The market changes, the technology evolves, and the customer's needs transform. If we clung to old models, we would have died out. Instead, we stayed open, curious, and agile. That's why continuous learning and self-improvement are non-negotiable. If the world changes faster than you do, you become irrelevant. The winners aren't the strongest, they're the most adaptable. I often told my team, don't try to change the rabbit, change yourself. What I meant is, don't waste energy trying to force the world to suit you. Learn to adjust your speed, your approach, your mindset. That's what creates resilience and focus. Those who resist change suffer. Those who embrace it evolve. Change isn't the enemy. It's the test that separates those who want to survive from those who want to thrive. One of the most powerful tools you can develop is self-awareness. Knowing when to let go of a belief, a process, or even a product that no longer works is what keeps a business alive. At Alibaba, we killed our own products when they weren't serving customers anymore. It was hard, yes, but growth doesn't come without letting go. And letting go is an act of strength, not weakness. So if you're facing a shift right now in your job, your business, or your life, don't panic. Instead, ask, what is this change trying to teach me? Because within every disruption is the seed of transformation. And only those who listen, adapt, and move with the wind will reach the destination. The question is, are you ready to pivot when the moment arrives? When we started Alibaba, I made something very clear. Customers first, employees second, shareholders third. Wall Street didn't like that, but I didn't care. I wasn't building a company for investors. I was building a service for people. If your customer is happy, your business lives. If you ignore them, you die. It's that simple. Every decision we made started with one question. How does this help the customer? That's how we built trust, and trust is the currency of the future. Customer obsession is not just about service. It's about empathy. It's about understanding their fears, their goals, their frustrations. We didn't just sell products, we solved problems. We listened when others talked. We paid attention when others ignored. And that level of emotional intelligence is what kept people coming back. If you want to build something that lasts, start by asking, what do my customers dream of? And how can I help them get there? I remember once a seller on our platform was struggling because of a payment issue. Most companies would have passed the problem to customer support. But I called the seller myself. Why? Because in their pain was a lesson. And that lesson became a system update that helped thousands of others. When you treat one person with care, others feel it too. Gratitude practices like this create loyalty you can't buy with marketing. Improving the customer experience isn't about adding more features. It's about simplifying, listening, refining. It's about self-awareness, knowing when you've lost touch with what people really need. At Alibaba, we never assumed we had it right. We kept asking, testing, adjusting. That's what led to innovation. That's how we stayed ahead. So look at your business, your brand, your service. Are you truly obsessed with the people you serve? If not, change your focus. Because productivity, motivation, even growth mindset, they all become effortless when you're driven by service. When you stop chasing money and start chasing impact, the money follows. And what if your greatest growth could come from listening better? Starting Alibaba was one of the biggest risks of my life. We had no money, no tech background, and no government support. Just 18 people in a small apartment with a big idea. And that idea was risky. An online marketplace in a country where most people had never heard of the internet. But I believed in it. Sometimes, all you have is belief. And if you wait for everything to be perfect, you'll never begin. Risk isn't the enemy. Fear of risk is. Every great achievement comes with uncertainty. People told me I was crazy. Jack, why don't you just keep teaching English? But I wasn't afraid of looking crazy. I was afraid of never trying. And I knew that regret hurts more than failure. Real willpower development comes from doing things others are afraid to do. So I chose action, not comfort, and it changed everything. You can't innovate without risk. You can't grow without stepping into the unknown. I knew we might fail. In fact, we almost did, many times. But each time we jumped, we learned. Each risk, whether it worked or not, brought us closer to what worked. That's the secret. Take smart risks, but take them. The cost of staying still is far greater than the cost of a wrong move. Risk builds character. It forces you to be resourceful, humble, and bold all at once. At Alibaba, we took risks others wouldn't. And that's why we ended up where others couldn't. It wasn't luck. It was self-belief, resilience, and the courage to act in uncertainty. Courage is a skill you build like a muscle. The more you practice it, the stronger it gets. So I ask you, what's the risk you've been avoiding? The one that keeps whispering to you at night? That may be the very path to your transformation. If you're waiting for a guarantee, you'll be waiting forever. Real success lives just beyond the edge of your comfort zone. That's where the magic happens. Even after all the success, I've never stopped learning. Because the moment you think you know everything, you stop growing. At Alibaba, I learned from everyone, interns, delivery workers, even competitors. Why? Because wisdom doesn't wear a suit. It can come from the quietest person in the room. If you stay humble, the world becomes your classroom. And continuous learning is the engine behind all personal development. I wasn't the smartest person in our team, and I made sure everyone knew that. Because when a leader pretends to know it all, they shut the door to innovation. But when a leader says, I don't know, let's learn together, people come alive. That attitude creates a culture of curiosity, creativity, and growth. It fuels self-improvement, builds trust, and pushes the team forward. There's a phrase I love. When you're poor, if you have a dream, you never feel poor. That dream should always be learning, to become better, sharper, wiser every day. Read books, ask questions, seek mentors. One book that shaped me was The Innovator's Dilemma by Clayton Christensen. It taught me that even successful companies fail when they stop learning. That book helped shape how we kept evolving at Alibaba. Learning is not about collecting facts, it's about building self-awareness. Understanding how you think, where you fall short, and what your blind spots are. It's uncomfortable sometimes. But discomfort is a sign that your mind is expanding. And in business and life, growth only happens when you're willing to step into what you don't know. So the question isn't whether you're learning enough, it's whether you're learning the right things. Are you listening to people who challenge your thinking? Are you open to being wrong? Because humility isn't about thinking less of yourself. It's about knowing you're not finished yet. And if you're not finished, imagine how far you can still go. Innovation doesn't happen in silence. It happens in noisy rooms with wild ideas and fearless questions. At Alibaba, we built a culture where people felt free to think differently. I didn't want employees to just follow instructions. I wanted them to challenge ideas, even mine. Because when people feel safe to experiment, true breakthroughs happen. And that's what turned Alibaba from a dream into a revolution. We didn't reward perfection, we rewarded courage. If someone tried something bold and failed, we celebrated the attempt. That's what creates a culture of growth mindset and continuous life transformation. Innovation is a result of permission. Not permission to be right, but to explore. When people are empowered, innovation becomes their natural language. There's no formula for innovation, but there is a foundation: trust, freedom, and feedback. We made mistakes, plenty. But every mistake gave birth to a better idea. Every failure brought insight. That's why I say, innovation doesn't come from a plan, it comes from a mindset. It's about how you see problems, as roadblocks or as invitations to reinvent. We created programs to encourage internal entrepreneurs, even giving employees resources to build and pitch their own projects. Some of Alibaba's most successful features started this way. You never know where the next great idea will come from. So I ask myself constantly, are we creating a space where people feel they can speak, try, fail, and try again? And if your team isn't innovating, it's not a people problem, it's a culture problem. Ask yourself, do you reward ideas or only results? Do you punish failure or learn from it? Because innovation isn't just about technology, it's about psychology. And when the mind feels safe, free, and valued, that's when the magic of creativity truly ignites. Business is not just about profits, it's about purpose. At Alibaba, we believed from the beginning that success meant nothing if it didn't help others rise too. That's why we invested in projects that supported education, small businesses, and rural communities. I saw business as a tool, not just to grow wealth, but to grow hope. And when you lead with purpose, people feel it. They want to be part of something bigger. In one of our early discussions with investors, I said, we care about people first: customers, employees, then shareholders. Many didn't like that, but I didn't build Alibaba for Wall Street. I built it for the street vendors, the factory workers, the students with big dreams and no money. When your mission includes them, your impact becomes unstoppable. Gratitude was at the heart of our business. We didn't rise alone. We rose because millions trusted us, and we never forgot that. That's why we created platforms for small entrepreneurs, giving them tools to compete globally. That's how we helped build futures, not just profits. Social responsibility isn't charity. It's smart business with a soul. When a business lifts a community, everyone wins. Employees become more loyal. Customers trust more. Partners stay longer. That's the power of positive thinking and self-awareness applied beyond yourself. It's how companies become movements. We weren't just selling things. We were changing how people live and work. So if you're building a company today, ask yourself, who is winning with you? Are you growing alone, or are you taking others with you? Because the true measure of success is how many people rise because of what you've built. And maybe, just maybe, your biggest legacy won't be what you earned, but who you helped along the way. There was a time when I thought working harder was the answer to everything. I would work from early morning to late at night, thinking that success demanded sacrifice. But over time, I learned that productivity doesn't come from burnout. It comes from balance. If your mind is exhausted, your vision shrinks. If your heart is empty, your motivation dies. That's why finding harmony between work and life isn't a luxury. It's a strategy. I remember sitting at dinner with my family, phone in hand, replying to emails. My son looked at me and said, "Dad, are you working again?" That moment hit me. I had built a giant company, but was forgetting to be present with the people who mattered most. So I made a decision. I would be as committed to my personal life as I was to my business. And what happened next surprised me. My focus, energy, and creativity at work all improved. Taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's self-discipline. It's waking up early for a walk, reading a good book, playing with your children without checking your phone. It's scheduling time not just for meetings, but for living. That's how you sustain your personal growth and long-term vision. Because you can't pour from an empty cup. At Alibaba, we encouraged balance, family events, wellness programs, even personal growth workshops. Why? Because we wanted people to feel alive, not just employed. And we saw that when people felt cared for, their performance skyrocketed. Healthy minds make better decisions. Rested hearts solve bigger problems. So if you've been ignoring your own needs, let me ask you, what's the cost of running at full speed with no pause? Success without peace is just pressure. And pressure, if unmanaged, destroys more than it builds. The goal isn't just to build a great business, it's to build a great life. And that begins with balance. One of the most overlooked superpowers in business is the ability to communicate well. I've seen brilliant ideas fail, not because they were wrong, but because they were never understood. At Alibaba, I made it a priority to speak clearly, honestly, and often. When you communicate with clarity, you align people. When you speak with authenticity, you inspire them. Communication is the bridge between vision and execution. In our meetings, I didn't use fancy words or complex slides. I told stories, I used humor, I asked questions. Because when people feel like you're talking to them, not at them, they engage. That's how you build emotional intelligence in leadership. It's not about being the loudest, it's about being the clearest. And clear communication reduces conflict, speeds up decision-making, and boosts team productivity. I've had tough conversations, layoffs, failures, missed goals, but I never hid from them. Instead, I faced them with transparency and respect. That's what earns trust. At Alibaba, our teams knew they could speak up, give feedback, and question decisions. Why? Because when people feel heard, they invest deeper. Communication isn't just about talking, it's about creating connection. Improving your communication starts with self-awareness. Are you listening or just waiting to speak? Are you adapting your message to your audience? Are you willing to say, "I was wrong," when needed? Those small shifts make a big difference, and they create space for innovation, collaboration, and mutual growth. So take a look at your next meeting, your next pitch, even your next conversation at home. Are you saying what matters in a way that resonates? Because the way you speak reveals the way you think. And the way you think defines the world you build around you. Crises don't build character, they reveal it. I've lived through many: economic collapses, fierce competition, internal chaos. But the toughest one? The moments when I doubted myself, when everything seemed to be falling apart and the weight of thousands of employees and their families was on my shoulders. That's when I learned that resilience is not a trait, it's a decision. You don't wait for strength, you choose it. During a particularly rough period at Alibaba, we were running out of money and trust. Some of our top people wanted to leave. I gathered the team and said, "I don't know how we'll win, but I know we won't quit." And that was enough. Not because it fixed the problem instantly, but because it reminded everyone of what we stood for. Resilience begins with belief, self-belief that you'll rise, even if you don't yet know how. In every crisis, you have two choices: panic or focus. Panic makes you freeze. Focus makes you adapt. When the 2008 financial crisis hit, we doubled down on supporting small businesses. While others were cutting back, we expanded. And that decision made us stronger. Because crisis is the birthplace of innovation, if you stay calm enough to see it. Building mental resilience means preparing your mindset before the storm. Read books that stretch your thinking, meditate, exercise, connect with people who uplift you. All of that becomes your armor, not to avoid the storm, but to walk through it and come out wiser. One book I recommend here, The Obstacle is the Way, by Ryan Holiday. It taught me how to use setbacks as strategy. So next time everything around you seems to fall apart, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what is this moment here to teach me? Because crises don't just test your leadership, they shape your legacy. And sometimes, it's in the darkest hours that your greatest breakthroughs begin. When I started Alibaba, I was surrounded by young people, many with no experience at all. And that was exactly what I wanted. Why? Because youth brings something no experience can buy: fearless imagination. They weren't afraid of making mistakes because they didn't yet believe in limits. And that energy, that bold, reckless creativity, is what every company needs to survive the future. I used to tell my team, I love hiring people smarter than me. And that often meant hiring people younger than me. They asked questions I never thought of. They challenged ideas I took for granted. Some of our most disruptive innovations came from 23-year-olds who didn't know they weren't supposed to do things a certain way. That's self-awareness, knowing when to get out of the way and let new minds lead. The truth is, experience can sometimes become a prison. It teaches us patterns, but it also makes us afraid to break them. Young people don't carry that weight. They try, they fail, they bounce back. That's the rhythm of self-improvement and creativity. At Alibaba, we empowered young teams to build, test, and launch their own projects. And it worked. Because they didn't see walls, they saw opportunities. One of my favorite parts of being a leader was asking junior employees, what would you do differently if you were in charge? And their answers changed how we operated. That's the power of a growth mindset. It says, I don't have all the answers, and that's a good thing, because that's how you stay relevant in a world that changes every day. So if you want to stay innovative, surround yourself with people who have nothing to lose, people who dream bigger than they know how to execute. And instead of saying, that won't work, start asking, what if it does? Because the future isn't written by the ones with experience. It's written by the ones with the courage to try. Alibaba didn't grow because of our technology. It grew because we cared deeply about people. Our employees, our partners, our customers. From day one, I believed that if you treat people like they matter, they'll build things that matter. Self-discipline in business isn't just about strategy, it's about relationships. And those are built one conversation, one decision, one act of respect at a time. I used to say, put your heart into your team and they'll give you their soul. That's what happened at Alibaba. We weren't just coworkers. We were a family with a mission. I didn't lead with pressure. I led with gratitude, listening, and trust. I knew that if someone felt seen and supported, they'd go further than any performance metric could predict. That's emotional intelligence in action. One day, an employee came to me and said, Jack, you believed in me when no one else did. And that person went on to lead one of our biggest divisions. You see, talent is everywhere, but trust, that's rare. And when you give it, you unlock something powerful in others. That's how empowerment becomes more than a buzzword. It becomes culture. Caring doesn't mean being soft. It means being human. It means balancing high standards with deep compassion. It means understanding that people aren't machines. They have dreams, families, fears. And when you build a business around those truths, you create loyalty, creativity, and explosive growth. We didn't just build a team, we built a tribe. So if your business feels stuck, look around. Are your people thriving or surviving? Are they growing or just grinding? Because in the end, success isn't built on code, capital, or connections. It's built on trust. And the question isn't, what are you building, but who are you building it with? Every crisis I faced in life came dressed as a disaster, but inside, it was a gift. When others saw a dead end, I saw a door. That's the secret. Opportunity doesn't knock, it hides. In 2003, during the SARS outbreak, our team was forced to work from home. It was chaos. But that's when we created Taobao, one of the biggest platforms in China. What looked like a setback became our turning point. Difficulties are nature's way of forcing us to evolve. You don't build mental resilience by staying in comfort. You build it when your back is against the wall and you still choose to move forward. I've learned that great ideas don't come when you're relaxed. They come when you're desperate to survive. That pressure forces innovation. And innovation, in times of trouble, becomes your weapon. At Alibaba, the biggest breakthroughs happened during our hardest moments. When funds ran low, we became more efficient. When partners left, we grew closer as a team. When markets crashed, we found new ones. That mindset, seeing challenge as fuel, is what created our success mindset. It's not magic. It's a decision to reframe your problems as pathways. I used to say, if everyone is running away from the fire, run toward it. There's gold there. And it's true. In tough times, most people freeze. They wait. But the winners? They adapt, act, and move fast. They don't wait for conditions to improve. They create new conditions. That's self-discipline. And it's what makes all the difference. So right now, if you're facing something hard, good. That means life is giving you a chance to grow, lead, and build something others can't even see yet. Don't run from it. Lean in. Because sometimes, the biggest storms bring the richest soil for your next season of growth. In the beginning, they called me crazy. Jack, the internet will never work here. Jack, no one will trust online payments. Jack, you're just a teacher. And maybe they were right, by the old rules. But I wasn't following old rules. I was building new ones. I had no money, no tech skills, and no big investors. What I had was a dream so big it made people laugh. But I didn't care, because I believed in it. Belief is powerful. It doesn't need proof. It needs willpower. I saw a future where a small business in a village could sell to the world, where a student in China could learn from anyone, anywhere. People called that impossible. But here's the thing. All great ideas sound impossible until someone makes them real. So I embraced being the crazy one, because the world isn't changed by the reasonable. It's changed by the relentless. I told my team, we're not smart, but we're stubborn. That stubborn belief kept us moving when we had no reason to. We worked through holidays, we shared desks, we sacrificed salaries. Why? Because belief gives energy that coffee never can. It turns setbacks into stories and late nights into legacy. That's the essence of motivation and self-belief. It makes you unstoppable. Being the crazy one doesn't mean being reckless. It means trusting your vision when no one else does. It means being laughed at, rejected, ignored, and still showing up. That's how success habits are born. Not from applause, but from silence. From those lonely early days when you have nothing but belief and a burning need to prove yourself right. So are you willing to be that crazy one? The one who sees light in the dark, who builds when others run, who believes when no one else does? Because if you are, the world won't understand you at first. But one day, it will thank you. And that's the beauty of dreaming with your eyes wide open.
Jack Ma didn't come from money. He wasn't a tech genius. He failed more times than most would ever dare. But when Jack Ma spoke, the room went silent, because what he delivered wasn't just a speech. It was a roadmap to transformation. In one of the most powerful talks of his life, Jack Ma revealed what truly separates dreamers from doers. He started by challenging everything we think we know about success. Dreaming big, he said, isn't a luxury, it's a responsibility. If not now, when? If not me, who? The power of that question echoed through the hearts of every entrepreneur, every young mind lost in doubt. His voice reminded everyone, when you have a dream, you never feel poor. Then came the hard truths. He opened up about rejection, dozens of them. From KFC to Harvard, Jack Ma wore his failures like medals. But instead of hiding them, he turned them into fuel. Because in every failure lies a hidden lesson. He showed how mental resilience and self-discipline aren't just traits. They're muscles built through setbacks. But Jack didn't stop at struggle. He pulled back the curtain on how real success is built. Not in isolation, but through teamwork, trust, and a culture of innovation. You want to catch the rabbit? Don't change the rabbit, change yourself. That simple metaphor lit up minds. Because when you take responsibility, you take control. And when the world changed, Jack adapted. With insight and empathy, he taught the power of serving customers before shareholders. He shared how the darkest crises birthed Alibaba's greatest innovations. How rest fuels creativity. How gratitude breeds loyalty. And how youth, inexperience, and boldness often see what the experience no longer can. His message was crystal clear. You don't need to be a genius to succeed. You need belief. Bold, unapologetic belief. Even if the world calls you crazy. Especially when it does. Because sometimes the ones who change the world are the ones who dare to believe they can. Jack Ma closed the room not with instructions, but with questions that demanded reflection. How are you treating your people? Are you building for impact or applause? What's the risk you're afraid to take? And most of all, are you ready to become the crazy one who believes? You've just walked through the real journey of Jack Ma. His failures, his risks, his vision, and the unshakable belief that moved mountains. But this story only matters if it changes yours. What's that one dream you've been holding back? What failure have you been afraid to face? What bold move are you waiting to take? Don't let these lessons be just motivation. Let them be your new mindset. Take one idea, just one, and apply it today. Write it down, act on it, share it with someone. Because that's how transformation begins. Not in giant leaps, but in small decisions made consistently. That's how you build resilience, sharpen discipline, and turn dreams into legacy. Now tell me in the comments, which part of this story spoke to you the most? Was it the persistence through rejection, the mindset of innovation, or the call to be the crazy one who believes when no one else does? I want to hear from you, and others will too. Your insight might be the spark for someone else. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel. Seriously, if you don't subscribe now, you might never find this again. And trust me, this is the kind of energy you want in your life. Hit that bell icon too, so you'll always get the next dose of truth, growth, and bold inspiration. Speaking of which, your next step is here. Go watch our next video. It's going to take everything you learned today and push it even further. I'll see you there.